Hello everybody. If you want to read all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 787, The Wrong Flight, UpAdvanced. At 6:10 on a grey Monday morning, Daniel Hargreaves stood in the security queue at Heathrow's Terminal 5 and tried to remember why he felt uneasy. Nothing appeared wrong. Business travellers tapped impatiently on their phones. A family argued about liquids in plastic bags. The loudspeaker politely repeated instructions about laptops and belts. Everything was ordinary. Yet Daniel felt as if he had stepped into the wrong version of his own life. He placed his bag on the conveyor belt. When it emerged on the other side of the scanner, a security officer lifted it gently. "Sir, could you step aside, please?" Daniel obeyed, slightly embarrassed. The officer unzipped the bag and paused. "Is this yours?" He lifted out a small metal case about the size of a book. Daniel frowned. "I have never seen that before." The officer did not smile. Two more staff members appeared. One quietly pressed a button on the wall. A moment later, the entire security area froze into tense silence. "What is it?" Daniel asked. The officer did not answer. Within minutes, Daniel found himself in a small interview room beside the security area. A woman in a dark suit entered and closed the door behind her. She placed the metal case on the table between them. "My name is Claire Morgan," she said calmly. "I work with airport security. I would like you to explain why this device was inside your bag." Daniel stared at the case. "I cannot explain it." "Try." He rubbed his face slowly. "I packed my bag myself last night. Laptop, clothes, documents, that is all." Claire Morgan studied him carefully. "You understand the situation, Mr. Hargreaves. If you are lying, your day is about to become extremely unpleasant." "I'm not lying." She opened the case. Inside was a compact electronic device, wires wrapped around a grey block of plastic. Daniel was not an expert, but even he understood what it resembled. An explosive. His mouth went dry. "This is insane," he said. Claire leaned forward slightly. "The question is not whether it is insane. The question is who placed it there." Daniel forced himself to think. "Someone must have access to my bag." "Where did you pack it?" "In my flat." "Did anyone visit you?" "No." Claire watched his face closely. "Did you leave the bag unattended at any time?" Daniel hesitated. "Only briefly, at a cafe near the office yesterday evening." Claire's eyes sharpened. "How long?" 2 or 3 minutes." She leaned back in her chair. "That might have been enough." Daniel swallowed. "So someone wanted me arrested at the airport?" "Possibly." "Why?" Claire did not answer immediately. Instead, she asked another question. "What do you do for a living, Mr. Hargreaves?" "I'm a financial analyst." "For which company?" "Northbridge Capital." For the first time, Claire Morgan reacted. Her expression changed very slightly, but Daniel noticed. "You recognize the name?" he asked. Claire closed the metal case again. "I recognize the investigation." Daniel felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "What investigation?" Claire folded her hands on the table. "For the past 6 months, several intelligence agencies have been examining unusual financial transfers connected to Northbridge Capital." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I analyze currency markets. I do not move money." "Nevertheless," Claire said quietly, "large sums have been routed through accounts connected to your department." Daniel stared at her. "You think I'm involved in some kind of international crime?" "I think someone does." Silence filled the room. Finally, Daniel spoke. "If someone planted that device in my bag, they wanted me stopped before I boarded my flight." "Correct." "Why stop me?" Claire looked at him steadily. That is the important question. Daniel thought about his trip. I was travelling to Geneva for a meeting with one of our investors. Name? Viktor Kovalenko. Claire sat perfectly still. You were certain about that? Yes. She stood up suddenly and walked to the door. Wait here, she said. 20 minutes later, she returned with 2 other people. One was a tall man with silver hair and the calm posture of someone accustomed to authority. Mr. Hargreaves, he said, my name is Adrian Shaw. Daniel did not recognize the name, but the atmosphere in the room had changed. Shaw placed a thin file on the table. Viktor Kovalenko is not an investor. Daniel blinked. He is not? No, he is an intermediary for a criminal network that launders money through European financial institutions. Daniel felt as if the floor had shifted under him. That is impossible. Shaw opened the file and slid a photograph across the table. Daniel recognized the face immediately. Kovalenko had visited the office twice. Your company believes he represents legitimate investors, Shaw continued, but intelligence reports suggest otherwise. Daniel shook his head slowly. So why was I meeting him? That, Shaw said, is what we would like to know. Daniel suddenly understood something. My presentation. What about it? It contains a detailed analysis of unusual transfers through our accounts. I discovered them 2 weeks ago. Claire leaned forward. And you were going to show this analysis to Kovalenko? Yes, I wanted an explanation. The room fell silent again. Adrian Shaw closed the file carefully. Then someone realized you were about to expose the operation. Daniel felt a chill run through him. So they planted a bomb in my bag? Not to explode, Shaw said, to ensure you were detained before you could reach Geneva. Daniel stared at the table. They wanted to stop me talking. Claire nodded slowly. But they also made a mistake. Daniel looked up. What mistake? They assumed airport security would treat you as the criminal. Daniel frowned. And instead? Adrian Shaw smiled slightly. Instead, we decided to ask questions. He pushed the metal case gently across the table. Mr. Hargreaves, we would like your help. Help with what? Catching the people who tried to frame you. Daniel stared at the case again. You want me to continue the trip? Exactly. Claire spoke quietly. Only this time you will not be travelling alone. 2 days later, Daniel sat in a cafe overlooking Lake Geneva. Snow rested lightly on the distant mountains. Viktor Kovalenko arrived exactly on time. He sat opposite Daniel and smiled politely. You had trouble at the airport, I hear. Daniel forced himself to remain calm. Nothing serious. Kovalenko stirred his coffee. Good. I was worried our meeting might be delayed. Daniel opened his laptop. I have prepared an analysis of certain transactions. Kovalenko's eyes flickered briefly. I am listening. Daniel began to explain the transfers, carefully repeating the information he had already given the intelligence officers. Kovalenko listened without interrupting. Finally, Daniel finished. There are only 2 possible explanations, Daniel said. Kovalenko leaned back. And what are they? Either these transfers are legal, but extremely poorly documented. And the other possibility? Daniel met his eyes. Or they are part of a laundering operation. For several seconds, Kovalenko said nothing. Then he smiled again, but the warmth had disappeared. You are a very intelligent man, Mr. Hargreaves. Daniel felt his heart beating faster. Behind him, tourists walked slowly along the lakeside. You discovered something dangerous, Kovalenko continued. I only followed the numbers. Yes, that is the problem with numbers. Kovalenko stood up. They eventually revealed the truth. He turned as if to leave. At that exact moment, 3 plainclothes officers stepped forward from different tables in the cafe. "Viktor Kovalenko?" one of them said calmly. "Please remain where you are." Kovalenko looked at Daniel. For the first time, his expression showed genuine surprise. "You worked with them?" Daniel did not answer. Within seconds, the officer had placed Kovalenko under arrest. As they led him away, Adrian Shaw appeared beside Daniel's table. "Nicely done," he said. Daniel exhaled slowly. "So it is finished?" Shaw looked toward the lake where police vehicles had just arrived. "For Kovalenko, yes." "And the network?" Shaw smiled faintly. "We now know where to look." Daniel closed his laptop. "Next time I travel," he said quietly, "I hope it will be for a normal meeting." Shaw laughed softly. "After today, Mr. Hargreaves, your life may never be entirely normal again." Daniel watched the police cars disappear into the traffic and realized that the uneasy feeling he had experienced at the airport had finally vanished. For the first time in days, everything made sense. The wrong flight had led him exactly where he needed to be. Vocabulary notes. Uneasy, meaning feeling worried, uncomfortable, or slightly afraid, often without knowing exactly why. It describes a sense that something may be wrong. Example: Daniel stood in a security queue and tried to remember why he felt uneasy. Similar words: uneasy, anxious, nervous, unsettled, troubled. Detained, meaning officially stopped and held by authorities, usually by police or security officers, so that they can ask questions or investigate a situation. Example: someone planted a device so that Daniel would be detained before he could reach Geneva. Similar words: held, arrested, stopped, taken into custody, restrained. Intermediary, meaning a person who acts between 2 other people or groups, especially to help them communicate or complete a transaction. In business or crime, an intermediary may secretly move money or information between parties. Example: Adrian Shaw explained that Viktor Kovalenko was an intermediary for a criminal network. Similar words: middleman, agent, go-between, representative, broker. Laundering, meaning the illegal process of hiding the origin of money obtained through crime by moving it through banks, companies, or financial systems so that it appears legitimate. Example: Kovalenko was involved in a network that launders money through European financial institutions. Similar words: concealment of funds, financial fraud, illegal transfers, illicit finance. Frame someone, meaning to deliberately make an innocent person appear guilty of a crime by planting evidence or creating false information. Example: Adrian Shaw told Daniel they wanted to catch the people who tried to frame him. Similar words: falsely accuse, set up, incriminate, trap, blame. Story written by ChatGPT. Image created by ChatGPT. To read all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. CC Music, drifting at 432 Hz, Unicorn Heads.